Hello and welcome back to another show on the Celtic Way YouTube channel where we chat about all things Celtic and sometimes their opponents. And this week, Celtic are in Denmark to face FC Midtjylland in the UEFA Europa League. A big match for all concerned against a very good informed team. So we thought it was well worth finding out a lot more about them. And to that end, my guest today is Ryan Svale Andersen, and he's one of the hosts of the Sort Snak podcast, which is a Midtjylland specialist podcast. So we're here to chat through all the strengths and story of Midtjylland this season. And Ryan, just for starters, Midtjylland have had a
Yeah,
brilliant start to the Europa League. They're top of the table. They're flying high. Excitement must be building amongst the Midtjylland fan base at the moment.
yeah, you can say that. I think that we knew that we were a good squad. We knew that we had some good chances in the Europa League, but I think we had a fantastic start. Honestly, better than most of us expected, especially the win against Nottingham Forest. I think that most of us calculated with 6 points right now because we could see that Sturm Graz and Maccabi were a team where we were equally and we could put up against it. But especially the win in Nottingham and the way we did it was fantastic. Beating a Premier League squad with physic is very rare for a Danish side, but it was actually what we did. Playing a bit more traditional British football against the British side, it was excellent.
Yeah, and this is now looking to be one of Celtic's toughest matches on their fixture schedule. Celtic had ambitions to be a Champions League team this season. That didn't quite work out that way. Europa League's been a bit of a mixed bag so far, but this match is looking very tough at the moment. The big changes at Celtic, of course, with Martin O'Neill coming in. And this could, he is something of an interim manager at Celtic at the moment. If he's here for something like 5 or 6 games, this could end up being the hardest game that he faces. And Martin O'Neill's been quite open about that in press conferences, Ryan. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but he said he was at the Nottingham Forest game. Obviously, Martin O'Neill is a Nottingham Forest legend in his own right, and he saw the way Midtjylland kind of took apart Nottingham Forest that night. So he's well aware of the strengths of Midtjylland. I just want to talk a bit about Mike Tulber because he came
Yeah.
in despite the previous manager not exactly hitting a bad run of form or anything. I think Midtjylland were in very good nick at that point, but Mike Tulber's come in and made a bigger impact and taken them onto new heights. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, Midtjylland is quite an unusual club in many perspectives. As we sacked our coach Thomas Thomasberg, who had an unbeaten run at 18 games in a row. That's very rare in football to sack a coach after an unbeaten run. And he got us the championship in the 23-24 seasons. Last season, he was 1 point from getting champions. He qualified us for two Europa League phases straight. So you could say that if you look at just the results, he done extraordinary. But if you look at our matches and the way we struggle against especially smaller teams, we were not dominant. We conceded way too many goals, and you as a fan, you always had the feeling that you need to score 3, 4, 5 goals before you feel secure about the win. So that was the point of sacking him. That Midtjylland is a club that look at the data behind,
Mm.
like Brentford also do, and the data behind it said that Midtjylland overperformed or did not perform. They were actually way lower. They were top of the league, but should have been lower. And they struggling to manage and controlling the game. So that's what's the reason behind choosing Mike Tulberg. I think most fans were confused. Most fans didn't really understand that. Why do you take a man in charge who's, his resume is good. He was a youth coach in Dortmund, had a few matches as a head coach in Dortmund, but he really didn't have any experience as a head coach. So we were kind of confused about the timing and confused about his successor. But sitting here like 2 months into his tenure, he's been very, very impressive. And Midtjylland looks like a completely different side than what we did in July and August. Tulba has really impressed defensively first and foremost, but also especially in the home league games we have looked dominant, and we have won 3 or 4-0 without conceding goals. We have creating chances. We look like a completely different size than what we did under Thomas Thomasberg. So far, the change of coach have been quite successful for Midtjylland, I would say.
Yeah, very interesting to hear a kind of data-led approach to changing a manager who is, from the outside looking in, very successful. I wonder if that's going to be the next trend in football. We see a lot of data-led decisions with regard to players, but with regard to managers, it might become a more important thing. And as you
I
kind
think
of
Midtjylland has a quite unique way of becoming trendsetters in football in some way. Of course, our former owner is Matthew Benham, who's also the owner of Brentford, the Premier League side. And if you look at the way they do it, like overperforming, if you look at the way the club is and the economy and stuff, it's kind of the same thing with Midtjylland. We have a good way of looking at data when we scout players, but also when we scout coaches and when we look at the way it performs. That okay, there's another story to what the eye sees. It's also what the data sees, and I think that's becoming a new trend in football. I know we should talk about set pieces later, but Midtjylland has been a really good set piece team for many years. And if you watch a lot of Premier League, like I do, it's kind of becoming like more of a habit in British football, I would say, to be good at set pieces. So we are first movers in some parts of the football, I would say.
the data aspect of football has been a big talking point in Scottish football this year. I don't know if you're aware, but Hearts, the Edinburgh side, they're now owned by Tony Bloom, who is also involved at Brighton and was involved in USG in Belgium. And he's a big proponent of data-led approaches to football. And Hearts are doing very well this season as a result, and people are very interested in that project. Just Midtjylland right now on the pitch, how do they set up, Ryan? What's their kind of what's their tactical setup, and how do they like to approach matches at the moment? And does it change in the Europa League from league matches?
I wouldn't say we changed it, but I think our former coach played a 4-4-2, a classic 4-4-2, with two attackers, like one being like a target man and one being like a fast forward. Mike Tulberg, if you look at how he used to play, how he wants to play a 4-3-3. But actually, in Midtjylland, he plays with a five center backs or three center backs. Tough to see what he really wants to see because he's playing with three center backs. But it's like 4-3-3 in the build up, but five in out of possession.
Okay.
So what he's but that because his main focus was to be very very defensive structurally in his first couple of games because we conceded way too many goals, and he had success in that. But yeah, we play with three in the center backs, and then two wing backs, two center midfielders, and then either two strikers, and then a 10 or two wingers and a striker. It's different from games to games. He has like he chooses between 15 or 16 players who he changes during the game or during or who we faces. So he's a manager who's not easy to know what his ideas is on the tactical kind of viewing, because he likes to play players out of position to get more control in the midfield. Example, we had the man who scored the winning goal in Nottingham, Valdemar Byskov, who is actually he's more like a 10, but he can also play an 8 or a winger. But suddenly again a match against Vejle in the Super League, he played as a wide ring back because he could add some more offensive qualities, and he ended up scoring 2 goals in that game. But if you look at him position-wise, he was placed at a wide ring, but I think he played more like an extra midfielder during the game. But so that's the kind of tactical he does, and of course he has spent a lot of years in Dortmund. So if you look at the way he wants to play, it's very inspired of the way Jurgen Klopp wanted to play with his Liverpool side. Very gegenpressing, very highly power played with intensity, pressure on the ball, and very good on counter attacks. That's how he wants to play.
Interesting, very interesting, and who's the standout? Because if you look at some of the headline numbers, Francolino's scored a lot of goals this season. But who
Yeah.
makes this Midtjylland team function in your eyes? Who's the main players in this outfit?
Of course, I cannot not mention Francolino. The fact that he still plays in Midtjylland is quite impressive. He's way too good to
Yeah.
play in Midtjylland. To be honest, 13 league goals in 13 league games so far. He's played in the club for this is his third season. So he's already the top scorer in the European competition. I'm pretty sure that this is his last season in Midtjylland, and he's gonna
Okay.
play either in the Premier League or in one of the bigger leagues, one of the bigger clubs after the summer. So of course I cannot mention him, but I would say that we one of our last transfers in the transfer window was the former Nottingham Forest, no, former Bournemouth player Philip Billing, who's also Danish
Yeah.
international, and his impact on the team is not that he gets a lot of assists or goals, but he's just like he was the missing piece of this team. The way he conducts to the team and the way he leads on the pitch, and it's quite important. But he's not the one who makes all the goals or the chances, but he's just his influence in this team is massive. But otherwise, I would say we have two extraordinary wingers. We have the Chilean international Dario Osorio, who has he's very very high speed. He's good dribbling skills, and his shooting abilities is quite unique. If your listeners want, they can go into YouTube and then look at about his then look for his goals in Midtjyllands, and they are quite most of them are bangers, like 20 out from yards. He scores from outrageous positions. He's really really good at shooting. And then I would say our the man who make the most of our chances is half. He's actually born and raised in Denmark, but he's a Turkish international. He's called
Okay.
Ardal Simsir. If you look at all the data, he's the guy with the most assists in the Superliga. He's the guy who created the most chances. He's the guy who always have a second or third foot in every goals that Midtjylland scored. So he is a key factor, but it's not him who everyone looks at in the game, because the presence of Francolino is, I would say, what makes the team so good, because he's a guy who can score out of nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah, he does look a threat. Again, thanks to the insight there. You mentioned it earlier in the show, and we talked a bit about this off air. But just with regard to Midtjylland and their set pieces, just for our viewers and listeners, if you haven't seen the BBC did a profile piece on Midtjylland's set piece style and how they've emerged to become one of the leaders in set piece goal scoring over the last few years. And Midtjylland actually have it up on their training base, don't they, Ryan? They have like a graphic which shows that they're shows their set piece goal difference in comparison to other teams in Denmark, and set pieces are
Yeah,
a big focus of how Midtjylland function as well.
yeah. We like to say we are the at least the Europe's the best team in Europe at set pieces. I think right now Arsenal is better than us, to be fair, because
Okay.
the last couple of matches, Mike Tulberg's focus has been to also trying to score a lot of goals in open play and not just set pieces, and it's worked. So, so maybe we haven't scored that much goals of set pieces, where Arsenal, as I see it, only score goals through set pieces. But yeah, it's kind of a big deal in the club, and something that has been, I would say, the last 10 years. We were quite good at it in the 2020 season, but we also had one of Celtic former player Erik Sviatchenko, who is
Yes,
also
of
the
course.
former captain for Midtjylland. He was an extraordinary header, and he had an extraordinary ability to always know where to stand during the set pieces and come to a header. So sometimes sometimes we have a really good squad to it. This year I would say we also have some headers, but during the era of Sviatchenko, I would say we were a lot better, because he had the ability to find the right places and the right spots to come for a header on a corner. But of course, it's something we develop, something we try to focus on. It's a big deal in Midtjylland, and all the players we brought in from other clubs, they are quite impressed of how it's a big deal of the culture in Midtjylland and in the training in Midtjylland. I think that they always in Denmark we have open training session for fans and for journalists and stuff. So I'm watching quite a lot of the training, and every training ends with, I would say, a minimum of 20 minutes of set pieces on how should we focus on what how do Celtic defense on set pieces, what should we do here and stuff, and what can we do. So it's kind of a big deal in Midtjylland, I would say. And if you look at who had been the set piece coaches in the history of Midtjylland, we have Austin McAfee, who's in Aston Villa, I think. Martin Mark, who is in Newcastle. We have Mads Buckereit, who is a part of the German national team, and I think we have a few more who is today on much bigger addresses than Midtjylland, because their work has been so impressive. So it's a big part of our DNA. But as a fan, right now we are also pleased that we know how to score goals besides set pieces.
Yeah, of course. The description of that might ring alarm bells for some Celtic supporters. Celtic haven't traditionally been a strong set piece team, certainly in Europe over the last decade or so, and even this season it's been a certain amount of weakness there until about 2 weeks ago when Brendan Rodgers left the club and they brought Man O'Neill in. Set pieces looked a little bit more functional against Rangers at the weekend, so we'll see how it plays out on Thursday night. We were talking a lot about Midtjylland's strengths, and that's for good reason. Midtjylland are a good team right now, obviously top of Europa League. As you say, scoring a lot of goals, not conceding many. But in terms of any weaknesses or any kind of things that they still need to improve upon, what would you say those are at the moment?
Yeah, to be fair, under the new coach Max Tuba, he lost his first game, which was against FC Nordsjælland. They play on a plastic field. Do you say that? It's not real grass; it's plastic.
Yeah.
And they have young players who play possession tiki-taka football. So every team in the Danish Superliga have a tough time when they're going to Nordsjælland. So he lost his first game, and there you could clearly see that Midtjylland had problems with a team that wants to have the ball. But I would say that was just a one-time thing, because we recently faced another team in Denmark who wants to have the ball a lot, and we were dominant in the position. So for me, it's kind of difficult to find out what the weaknesses of Midtjylland is right now. But looking at the latest match we played on Monday against Aarhus, which is number one in the Danish league, they were quite good at frustrating us. They were kind of good at getting into our head. They made a lot of we received a lot of yellow cards because we were frustrated about how they played against us and how they were quite physical. So I think that's the weakness for us, that trying to be trying not to play a part in the mind games during the match, and try to not to lose our heads. Again, we're really good at it. We have to stay composed in those situations, and that's something we maybe still can improve. But I would say overall, it's tough to find weaknesses right now. But it's because we haven't faced all due respect to Nottingham, but all due respect to you. You guys would traditionally be a team we would see that could be a tough match, but both teams are not in the best form yet, and Midtjylland are. So we haven't faced a really, really strong side. So it's tough to see our weaknesses right now. But I would say that if Celtic managed somehow to get into the head of Midtjylland and frustrate us, I think that could be one of the factors where you could succeed, because we were quite a different side Monday than what we had used to the other. We struggled to create chances, especially in the first half, because Aarhus were their game plan worked against us. So that maybe a weakness is that to frustrate us and to really be there in the tackles, and yeah.
That's another interesting that you mentioned that, because actually Celtic in their last two matches under Man O'Neill have had a lot more fire to them and a lot more competitive spirit to them that has seemed to have disrupted the opposition at times, specifically against Rangers at the weekend. Obviously, that's a derby; it's a different thing. There's all sorts of different mentality and psychological aspects go into that, but I do wonder what we will see from Celtic against Midtjylland on Thursday. Just on, you mentioned there, you understand that Celtic aren't particularly in the best place at the moment. They've just changed managers. They don't have a permanent manager in place. Is the perception here from the Midtjylland end that this is another winnable game in Europe to further enhance your credentials as one of the top Europa League teams?
Well, when we first looked at our schedule in the Europa League, I think that just if Celtic were in order, if Celtic were as good as they used to be in the Scottish League, I think that most Midtjylland fans still would see the two teams as very equal, because Midtjylland has improved a lot. We met in 2021. I remember where Midtjylland won in overtime. I think Midtjylland have become a much stronger side since then. And from what I heard about some Danish Celtic fans, they say Celtic have actually become worse than since then. Of course, that was under your time during Arns Postecoglou, as I remember, right? So I would say that we know what Celtic is. We know their history. We know their European history. We know that is a big European club, a big traditional club with a lot of history. But I don't watch a lot of Scottish football. Let me say that clearly. So I think that, but we are really, really good at home, and we have been improving a lot in the Europe the last couple of seasons. So I think we see ourselves as a favorite. We would have done that against most teams anyway, but we see ourselves as favorites. But we still does not underestimate Celtic, because we know that you have some qualities, and maybe your listeners don't know it, but we in the qualifications to get to the Europa League, we faced another Scottish side, Hibernian, and we had a lot of trouble beating them. Of course, we are a different side now. We have a new coach than that, but we struggle a lot against the Hibernians. So, of course, we don't expect that it will be an easy game. But I think that with Midtjylland's recent form, I think that we see ourselves as favorite because more of our qualities than your form, if I could say that.
Yeah, then that's fair to say at the moment. Ryan, I really appreciate it. I know I have a much better sense of who Midtjylland are right now coming out of this discussion than I did going into it, and we'll hope that our viewers and listeners do too. And I fully appreciate what you've given us this afternoon. And yeah, we'll see how the game pans out. I think it's going to be a very, I think it could be Celtic have managed to break down games in recently to become slightly chaotic in nature, and I wonder if that's what they're going to try to do against Midtjylland as well. And then it comes down to who take chances on the night. I am very wary of Francolino, as you said, because he looks like a seasoned goal scorer, and actually Celtic don't have that at the moment. They've got a couple of young strikers. They've got Daisameda, who's more suited to being a winger, so that could be
Benjamin
the difference on the night.
We know Benjamin Nygren from the Danish league as well.
Of course,
I know he's the top scorer of Celtic. He's a good player, a player that both I think Midtjylland and Copenhagen were interested in, but he chose Celtic. And I think not. As I said, I don't watch a lot of Scottish football, but I think Midtjylland and Copenhagen sees themselves as at least the level of both Celtic and Rangers right now. Maybe not historically, but right now I think that both Copenhagen and Midtjylland sees themselves as at least the level of Celtic and Rangers. Maybe right now Midtjylland are a bit better based on form.
Yeah, it seems on form this season. I think we'll give you that. And again, Ryan, I thank you for your time and thank you for your insight today. Everyone will be back with lots more on Midtjylland, obviously, over the next couple of days. Coverage of press conferences on celticway.co.uk and the YouTube channel. And, of course, match coverage tomorrow as well with reporters in Denmark giving us the latest updates. Ryan, thank you. Enjoy the match on Thursday. May the best team win, and we'll see how it all pans out. And good luck with Midtjylland, regardless of what happens on Thursday with the rest of Midtjylland's season.
And if any of your listeners are taking the trip to Denmark and to Herning, please feel free to drink a lot of pints in Herning. We have some some really good Irish pubs. Actually, we have Murphy's and Old Irish, and we have something called Fox and Hounds with brilliant pints. Also some Jennies. I know that Celtic traditional sees itself as an Irish club,
Yeah.
so yeah, there are a lot of Jennies in Herning, and they taste as brilliantly as they do, as they does in Scotland. So, and I might also be around the city center. So if you see
Okay.
me, come take a pint with me. I'm happily sharing some more info. I love talking about football. Love talking about different football coaches, and I'm also gonna be at the stadium, but I'm gonna be at the press seats. So yeah.
Fantastic. Ryan, you're a good man. I really appreciate it. I'll leave your socials and tag you in all the posts as well, so Celtic fans can find you if they want to find that pint of Guinness.
They're
And
welcome. They're
yeah,
welcome as long as they are a good behavior and the pints are good. I'm open for it.
thank you, Ryan. And again, everyone, goodbye. We'll see you next time on the Celtic Way.